that was the time of a waiver renewal, and family as staff was being questioned and actually threatened at that time. So we formed and became an organization to fight for the continued choice and control over services and the person's right to hire a family if they wanted to. Okay, and this is 10 years later. So go ahead to the next slide. So that means that we have really gotten to our 10-year mark, right? So we did a lot of reflection. We have really taken a minute. We've been very busy, but internally we've taken a minute to look back on those 10 years. We had, several founding members retire. This is hard work. It's relentless, as you well know, like all of you know that. So we really reflected on the last 10 years. We have been spending time building our infrastructure and to prepare us to go another 10 years, because obviously new people have to come and get involved, and more and more turnover will occur as the years go by, right? So we want to thank the original members like Meg and Carol and the few other people that were early on foundational members. Okay, so that's what we've been doing. We've been doing really working on our infrastructure while at the same time doing lots of advocacy that we'll tell you about. Okay, now I'll turn it over to Athena.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Athena Elliott, and I am SDAN board, have been for a couple of years. And to briefly introduce our seasoned board members, those that have been board members for anywhere from 1 to 10 years, and then introduce our new board members that have just started in the last 2 months. So Alicia Wapat is our president. Just give a quick wave. Yes, thanks. Patty Saylor, who you've been hearing from, is the vice president of SDAN. I am the board secretary, and I'm going to just jump to the right for a second here. Peter Mattis is our newly appointed treasurer. He is a new board member. So if you can give a wave there. More of our longstanding board members, Sunny Sefarati. Just quick waves, folks. Beth Monroe is also a seasoned board member. Stephanie Watkins and Lynn Gummo have been with us all for a while. In addition to Peter, some of the new board members are Kimberly Manns. Just put some names with faces here. Eldon Windyboy. Thanks, Eldon. Samantha Ferraro. And Jessica Gallatin. So we've got a good, diverse new board members, and it just brings a lot of different perspectives. We've also hired a couple of staff people that have just been really helpful. Rachel Sullivan is our administrative and technical support, and Kevin Keene is our communications consultant. And you'll be hearing about some projects that he's working on throughout the meeting here. So welcome to all of them. And I'll turn the next slide over to Stephanie.
Hi, guys. So we wanted today to talk a little bit about the history of self-direction for those of you kind of new to it, and kind of where we are today. And self-direction is growing rapidly. Because individuals want more choice, control, and autonomy over their services. And the response, especially that we've really been, I think, feeling this past year, I think is a result of, when things grow quick, the reaction sometimes tends to be to regulate and manage that growth. And that often results in increased rules, additional burdens for the participants, and making the system just more complex and challenging to navigate. And we definitely have seen that over this past year. We want you to know that SDAN really recognizes that. We see this issue, and we're aiming to reverse this false negative narrative that's kind of taken place this past year. We have many efforts that we're trying to put into place to reverse that false negative narrative. We want to put out clear factual information to the public and policymakers on and really reshape the perceptions to really show the truth of what's happening within self-direction.
Yeah, so we know that General Assembly has begun their session, I believe, as of yesterday. We know that, of course, the economic situation in Maryland is of great concern to us. Reports are that Maryland has a 1.4 billion budget deficit. I've heard numbers ranging from 1.3 to 1.5, but regardless, it's a big issue. Medicaid programs everywhere, not just in Maryland, are under increased review with some concern about disenrollments that will be happening next year. So the legislature's got their eyes on this issue for not only this fiscal year, but next. We have heard from the governor's office that more information about agency budgets will be revealed soon, before the entire budget is revealed. We do anticipate cost containment strategies across all DDA service. That includes both traditional providers and self-direction.
Okay, so take a deep breath, everybody. We just heard and what we knew to be true, right? We're going to be looking at some kind of changes budget-wise. We'll let you know when we know. So just take a deep breath. We're going to make it. We're going to get through all this. I'm going to give you just a little bit of a context of the work that SDAN has been doing on your behalf, and it generalizes to state, local, and national advocacy efforts. There are basically two pathways that people take in advocating: systemic advocacy, like working with partners, or your individual advocacy, which each of you do on behalf of your own participant or yourself as the participant. So each of those, whether you're going at things systemically or you're doing things individually, you're looking at collaborative efforts, you're looking at legislative efforts, and you're looking at legal strategies under both pathways. So I'm going to just quickly show you and tell you a little bit about what we've been doing and what we continue to do in this way. Okay, next. So first, the systemic. Even if we're quiet and you're not hearing from us, as a volunteer board, we just want you to be reassured and understand we are doing systemic advocacy all the time. These are a list of some of the committees and councils and things that SDAN is representing self-direction in, along with other advocates as well. But we're in a rate review advisory committee. We're on the MidSec, which is the second bullet there that met to look at cost containment and sustainability. We're on the Waiver Advisory Council, where we've met, and attend the Secretary of MDH's roundtables. We coordinate with the Developmental Disability Coalition and other advocacy groups. We're on the Government Affairs Committee with the ARC Maryland. We meet with DDA leadership when we can and when they will allow it. And we recently have talked with the governor's office. So, that's just all the busy work that we do, but we want to make sure that you understand, even when you're not hearing from us, we are still doing this. And what we're representing, we're going to go into slides a little bit later of the key issues that we think are of importance to you, based on what you have told us. But we're also going to be asking you to kind of fill us in on more if you have more thoughts. So we're involved in this systems advocacy in the way of collaborating in the state. Next. We're also involved in, kind of legislative and legal strategies. So legislatively, one of the biggest things, of course, is that many of you were involved when we were able to get the Self-Direction Act passed in 2022. We are still trying to hold the state accountable at fulfilling the requirements of that law, because just to get the law passed doesn't mean that they do it and they adhere to it. So a lot of our efforts with legislators are to make sure to put pressure on the state to actually fulfill the obligation of that law. We're staying in touch with key legislators that we've been working with for years, just to continue to highlight your concerns. There are other advocacy groups doing that as well. And so hopefully, and you'll be hearing, from their activities to join into. So we will be monitoring legislative bills and issues. We're asking any of you to be involved in the systemic efforts as well. We're continuing, so on the legal right, we continue to consult with Disability Rights Maryland. That involvement has waxed and waned over the last year. They at times have personnel that can really do a lot of work, and there's times where they have personnel that cannot do a lot of work. And they have been focusing with us on elements of the SD Act that are not being complied with. And we have met over the last year or two with private attorneys and understand that systemically, we do not have, they have advised us that there is not a class action suit that would fit this. So we're no longer going down that path, but certainly get to that when we do individual advocacy. So that's systemically what SDAN is doing and continue to do. And we foresee continuing to do that in the next 10 years. There is a link here for the Developmental Disabilities Day registration. Many of you are seeing that in your Facebook feeds or on Instagram that the registration dropped yesterday. And so you can register to attend DD Day on February 18th. You can just go to Annapolis on that day, but there's some information there on that link. And absolutely, these slides will be available to you a little bit later, because we want you to hang in there with us in the meetings, because the slides don't tell the full story. Okay, next. Quickly going through some individual advocacy paths. So these are the things that we want to support and encourage you to do and give you the tools that you need to do it. I've been doing advocacy work for well over 35 years now on every level, and state, national, local. Legislators tell us over and over and over again that the most powerful thing that moves them is your story. Not lobbyists, not agencies, but your personal story. And so we were going to encourage you to use that, to be able to collaborate by, constructing your story, attend meetings, any hearings that you hear about that we post that are happening, any rallies or peaceful protests that are happening, and writing your personal testimony for any of the bills that come up, or submitting personal testimony. And again, we will help, and we will make sure you know how to do these things along with other groups that are doing this work. Legislatively and legally, we can't emphasize enough that having a personal relationship with your legislators, especially your delegates and certain delegates and senators of key committees, they will know you. They will remember you as a participant, and that moves them. I've just witnessed this 100 times. I'm sure people here on our call here have witnessed it too. That we often see Rob Stone in pictures with the governor. The governor knows who Rob Stone is and what his issues are, and it really moves people. So we're encouraging you. So we encourage you to pay attention to legislative efforts to the degree you can. Every single one of you is overwhelmed and busy. It's really, really hard what we do. But if you have the ability to pay attention to legislation and get your testimonies in, that's great. And then, of course, individual advocacy on behalf of your own PCP, filing appeals, going to hearing, those things change the direction of things. So there's some individual paths that people can take. So I hope that helps you understand that we continue to do systemic advocacy all the time, even if you're not hearing it from us. And we are certainly pivoting right now to kind of supporting you to do individual advocacy, because that we've done this systemic advocacy for 10 years and we have moved the needle on many things. But right now we're meeting a brick wall, right? In all of the things that we're trying to get changed on your behalf. And we're looking to hold on to what we have, and hold on to the choice and flexibility, and hold on, the pushing back on changes. So the individual pathway is really important right now, your individual advocacy. Okay, thanks. Next.
All right. So we want everyone to know that we are hearing feedback from participants, family members, CCSs, lots of individuals. And we're taking that feedback and we are kind of prioritizing, what we see as are the major issues that we need to share and to advocate for. And we're doing that through the list that Patty shared a little bit ago, all those different groups. I sit on the Waiver Advisory Council as SDAN's representative. And and constantly am bringing a lot of these issues, in front of them. And I sit on that committee with individuals that know nothing about self-direction. So there's an educational piece where we have to explain about self-direction and what it is, and then why it's important. So we're going to spend the next few minutes kind of going through and sharing some of those top issues. Please, at the end, we're going to have a couple ways for you to give feedback. You can email. We're going to have like a live form, like a Google Sheets that we're going to, use. You can put your comments in the chat. We do watch the Facebook page to see what topics are kind of, coming up, and that's a good source also. But email us if there's something you feel we've missed in today's presentation that is an issue that you feel we're not bringing attention to. Please share that with us. Next slide. So many of you have felt this shift over this past year. Some of it is a response, right, to the budget deficit. But there's also been a shift, in the overall mission, many of us sense from DDA. I'm not going to read this for you guys. You guys can read this. But on the left is what the vision and mission statement were prior to the fall of 2025. And on the right is the current, how DDA's website has been updated. So you can definitely see that there has been a shift, especially in the mission. We want to ensure you that SDAN's mission has not changed and will not change. Next slide. So this is SDAN's kind of vision and mission statement. And always it is that anybody can self-direct with the right supports and the right team around them. And we do believe that folks that self-direct need to be good stewards of the Medicaid funds that they're receiving. And we want to work with the state. We're really trying to communicate and collaborate with the state that we can do so in a way that just focusing on the things that we have always focused on, that every participant should have budget employer authority, that self-direction remains person-centered, that the policies and communication need to be accessible by everybody. A lot of times communication comes out and it's so heavy and so difficult to understand. So we constantly have to ask that it be presented in a way that everybody can understand it and access it.
So one of the issues, kind of pivoting from what Stephanie was just describing in the employer and budget authority, is a critical issue regarding employer authority. The issue has been reported by members and felt that there is a lot of continued and increasing scrutiny around a participant's choice to hire family members for a variety of services. Family as staff, as it's called, is still a really critical element of self-direction and still available, but there are additional boundaries that have been placed in new policies from DDA around the extent of that and the types of services that family can provide. SDAN's position is that to the maximum extent possible, that participants should be able to hire anyone that they choose that is qualified, passes the background investigation, and really serves their needs the best. And quite often, this involves family members. There are existing safeguards to address any real or perceived conflicts of interest. Some examples of that are, if you hire a family member, then you must have a support broker. And that helps to mitigate those potential conflicts of interest. There are also maximums on, for example, a number of hours that a family member can charge as staff time. So we feel that these are adequate, and family is critical where participants believe that that's their best choice. Next slide. There are increased reports of the FMCSs, no one in particular, in some difficulty obtaining payments and reimbursements that are reflected in PCP budgets. Some of this may be due to just changing policies and everyone getting used to that implementation, but the timely reimbursement of payments that are due to a participant are really very critical, as I'm sure everyone knows. So reinforcing that, making sure that there's good communication with the FMCS and the participant, follow up with them if you have questions or concerns. And the support broker can certainly be, in addition to the CCS, a lot of assistance in that regard. But the bottom line is, SDAN does believe that DDA should be accountable to ensure that participants have a functional and responsive FMCS, as they are a contractor of DDA. So this is a process that we hope and expect to improve in terms of consistency as time goes on. Next slide. Day-to-day administration. This has been a really important issue for probably most participants for a number of years. This is a position that is authorized in the Self-Direction Act. The recent waiver and related policy changes around this topic have significantly reduced the available authorized hours in policy for day-to-day administration, as well as a significant reduction in the types of services that or tasks that a day-to-day administrator can perform on behalf of a participant. While there is an assessed need, or where there is an assessed need in a PCP for a participant, SDAN believes and is strongly advocating for the use of the day-to-day administrator that is reflected in the law, and really trying to return this available resource to a level that it was prior, and where there's an assessed need and a participant's budget has the ability to fund it. So this is one where advocacy is continuing, and we are very, very much aware of the impact of the changes in this particular area as well as others. So next slide, and back to Stephanie.
So the hot topic of individual family-directed goods and services, the tongue twister, IFDGS. Similar to what I mentioned earlier about, when there's rapid growth, there is tightening down, right, on and heavier burden. This definitely falls in that category. We are back to the $5,000 cap that used to exist. That was reinstated this year. On top of that, there's additional burdens in accessing these funds. So you might have something approved in your plan, but now when you put in your request, you have to go through the smart sheet. You have to prove that there's need, that you can't afford it. You have to prove that you've reached out to every other possible resource imaginable. They've capped the dollar amount that you can spend on the different items. And they've made it more challenging to get it paid out, because now they want the FMCS to pay it directly, which the FMCS isn't even capable of doing that in many situations. So they've really made the funds for IFDGS inaccessible, even if you have it approved. So we are constantly bringing that to the table, and we will continue to try to create some change here. Next slide. So this is a topic many of you might not be familiar with. The Center for Medicaid actually has in their guide, I'm going to actually read, not word for word, but a summary of what's in their guide. They state that for waiver services that the state permits let me say this again. The state permits services to be provided by a legally responsible individual. State policy should include determining that the provision of those services by a legally responsible person is in the best interest of the waiver participant. So what they're really getting at is, if a legally responsible person is being paid to provide a service, or if that legally responsible person is making a decision about what provider or waiver service the individual receives, that there should be more accountability, and that they need to make sure that substituted judgment is in effect. Substituted judgment is actually, if you are a legal guardian, you've already agreed to perform substituted judgment. DDA has not really decided how they're going to implement this Center for Medicaid guidance. And as they're making that decision, we want to really emphasize that any individual that can make their own decision, whether they have a legal guardian or not, any individual that is able to make a decision, however they are able to express their thoughts and opinions, that needs to be front and foremost. Anybody who doesn't have a legal guardian should not be impacted by this. If they're able to make their decisions, they should be able to make their decisions, and they shouldn't have a form to fill out. They shouldn't have anything to do with this. This really is intended from the CMS guidance to be for individuals that have legal representatives that are in a paid or making decisions that impact their services. I'm going to put a little link in the chat for you to kind of explains. It's from the court system, and it explains substituted judgment, best interest, and kind of the thought process of how to make decisions for somebody that maybe cannot express their choices. So this is just something that we are watching, and we will continue to try to protect the rights of individuals. That we always want everything to be self-determined. We want individuals to have the power to make choices and not lose that power and control.
Sure. We hear a lot from people who have complex medical needs and may have REM medical assistance, which is the only payer for skilled nursing, right? DDA does not pay for skilled nursing, which we would know as shift nursing, like a nurse performing the care for the shift as compared to a DSP. So REM medical assistance is where that comes from. So for people that have skilled nursing, we hear that they are really running into a lot of difficulty accessing DDA services. That DDA is denying services for them. Now, we also know that DDA is denying services for people who have Community First Choice, CFC, but that's a different thing. So the state has to access Medicaid state plan services first. That accounts for them saying you got to go over to CFC. And if that doesn't work out, the participant can come back to DDA and say CFC didn't work out. But so if this is in particular to the skilled nursing. So a person has a nurse, well, nurses only do nursing. They don't do community integration. They don't do, communication and assistive technology. And it's just not part of being a nurse. Now, they may do some of that because you've negotiated this relationship with them and they pitch in, but that's not typically the reason they're there for the skilled nursing shift. So we're, looking to continue to have conversations with DDA and represent, well, I would say MDH, Maryland Department of Health, not just DDA, but that a person who has skilled nursing needs, because by regulation, a nurse has to do the work, that they also should be able to avail themselves of DDA habilitative supports. And we will continue to have those conversations and take that stand. And we just encourage any of you who are in this situation to band together, to know each other, and to formulate some advocacy strategies together, because this does not affect everybody that receives DDA services, but who it does affect, it is a profound effect, and it can be the difference between living in the community and not living in the community. So it's a really important issue, but we know it doesn't affect everyone. But we're going to continue the advocacy push on this as well.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about a change in the waiver and policy that eliminated the case resolution conference for people who were trying to communicate with regional offices and to respond to clarifications, and where you couldn't actually come up with a mediated agreement. The case resolution conference has always provided an opportunity to meet face-to-face and to hear both sides with a mediator, essentially listening and trying to, state for the record what each side is trying to do. And it has been very beneficial for people. because it does provide this opportunity where otherwise you don't have it. So our position is we want them to bring it back. So the case resolution conference is only available now for things like eligibility issues, no longer for PCP decisions. So we think it's more cost effective, obviously, for the individual participant and probably for the state budget to have this opportunity to go back and forth. And it's certainly denying it impacts people who don't have the time, the money, or the expertise even to file an appeal and go to the Office of Administrative Hearings. So we feel like as an equity issue and a real-time help for participants, we should bring the case resolution conference back in a waiver amendment. Next slide. And this is another phrase that was eliminated in this last waiver removal, and it appeared very frequently in many of the services. And this, unless otherwise specifically approved by DDA, gave the DDA and regional offices an opportunity to really understand the unique needs of an individual participant. So taking it out has eliminated the ability of the state to respond to unique pieces of a participant's life or needs in a person-centered way. So if you don't fit in the box, then you get a denial. So we would like to see this language restored to the waiver so that the DDA does have the discretion to really do the person-centered business that is for all of us, self-direction and community providers as well. Next slide, and I think Kim, you're up.
So we also heard some other outstanding key issues that are being looked at as well. There were issues about the limitations of budget mileage and being able to reclaim those and health benefits, and the criteria that's needed for enhanced services, such as some of those things that were mentioned prior. And the ePrep system for the behavior support services and the nursing services is a new requirement by DDA that the BSS and the nursing must comply with and complete before the deadline. So if the next couple months come up and for some reason you get a rejection of non-payment because they're in non-compliance, that may be that possibility that BSS provider or that nursing service did not complete the process. There's also training issues with the CCS and the FMS that were brought to our attention that we're also looking at, as well as overtime issues for staff for being paid while they're taking training. Next slide, please. So as mentioned before, there are multiple ways to contact us, and listed on this slide, it gives you the email address and the HTML format for the questionnaire that was mentioned earlier. So you can also reach out to the website, I believe, also, and contact us as well.
There we go. Hi, good afternoon. So we have two new initiatives. The first is going to be promoting best practices and self-direction through educational offerings. The first offering is going to be like condensed PCP season series. That'll start in the coming months as most PCPs come in the summertime. Engaging participants with disabilities using self-direction is our second initiative. Can we go to the next slide? So we are going to, with the education initiative, we're going to create, share clear, practical resources, best tips for families who are doing well. We're going to have them share their experiences. And we're really just going to try to help educate and help you survive and thrive and flourish working with DDA and working to get services and those things.
I was
Sunny,
muted.
would you like to talk about the participant engagement initiative that you're working on with Jess?
Yeah, so basically the participant engagement initiative is a it is a committee that me and Jessica are on. We're going to be starting to have meetings on the first Monday of every month. I think the first one is February 2nd. We think it's important that the voices of participants need to be heard. We hear from, parents and not to, say anything against you. I think the value of parents and board members and direct support professionals is important, but the participant is the one who lives these experiences. We are the ones who live self-direction. I can tell you from my vantage point that my day-to-day admin position was definitely threatened in the past year. um, I think it's important that the voice of the participants needs to be the ones heard the loudest, because we're the ones who live self-direction. We're the ones who experience these things every day. I mean, the parents can support us, support brokers can support us, and they can have their say, but I felt that it was important that there needs to be a participant engagement committee so that participants can give their say in what they think is important to them.
Hi, I just wanted to jump in here and just kind of go right after Sunny here. I'm so excited that we're starting this. And so I look forward to meeting a lot more participants. I get a little frustrated in this world because we all know we're consumed with it. And following some of the recent discussions that we've watched, even at like the Waiver Advisory Council, it's just become so clear that there's not a determined effort to really listen. So having something set up pretty consistently, I think, is going to matter. And I'm happy to help facilitate all of that.
Awesome, thank you. I think we'll move on to our new campaign, and Athena, I think you're up.
Sure. We're very excited about this new SDAN campaign. We're calling it My Life, My Choice. And it's a great follow on here to the discussion by Sunny and Jessica about the participant engagement initiative. That is a separate activity. But the My Life, My Choice is one of Kevin Keene's, our communications specialist, a project that he's leading. You'll see some examples of the stories here that are on the slide. There has been 3 or 4 other stories in addition to these that are either in progress of being completed or have been completed. And you can see those, they're being posted as they're rolled out on the SDAN Facebook page and also on the SDAN website. But this is a campaign designed to center participant experiences as very individual, and as much information as the participant or their spokespersons would really feel comfortable sharing. We have on the next slide the contact information for Kevin Keene or to submit your content. And this can be completely in draft. We actually encourage you to just sort of be free flowing in the information, but you don't have to write anything yourself. Just a contact and setting up a conversation with Kevin, who is very approachable. He actually is an experienced journalist and has done, we think, a great job with telling people stories, and nothing will be published without the participants' agreement at the very end. But these stories have been really beautiful and received well. And as other board members have been saying at the beginning, the individual story, the individual advocacy is really the most powerful message. And so if you haven't seen these individual stories, I really do encourage you to read them and be encouraged by presenting your own story. And these could be from a participant's perspective. We have one from a parent's perspective. We have there may be one in progress here from, well, we actually do have one from a sibling's perspective, and some others. So there's just a lot of different angles to this, and we encourage anyone who is willing to do this to do it, especially at this time in the legislative session. So you'll get these slides and take note of that contact information, and we hope to hear from you, from more of you. Next slide.
So yeah, so the stories, we have ways to use them, I think, coming up right now. So yesterday, I'm going to just talk about a few upcoming events so you can keep them in mind in the next, I guess, month or so. The Maryland legislative session began yesterday and goes for approximately 90 days, so finishes in April. We want to stay abreast of what's going on there, and it's a big job. So we are excited to share with you an opportunity to sign up for the ARC Maryland Annapolis Insider. We've sent out, we've posted links to do that, and if you can just Google it as well. They track all of the bills that are going on that affect people with disabilities. So it's a nice compact way to stay up to date. And of course, when something comes up that we think warrants even further attention, we will be in touch with that. We have asked Kevin has suggested that we help everybody with legislative questions, frequently asked questions from SDAN. How do you find your legislator? How do you communicate with them? What committees are they on? What committees are important committees? So we're going to be sending out, I think on Facebook and Instagram, and probably via email as well, some FAQs that will help you be able to stay in touch and communicate with your legislator in an easier way. Again, I wanted to emphasize the storytelling. Please email Kevin, set up a time to talk. I just had a wonderful opportunity to speak with him, and he wrote the story, my son's story, and all the pressure was off of my son and I, because Kevin, really listened and took it to heart. So please do that. We are hoping to use these in DD Day in Annapolis, which earlier mentioned is February 18th. Please do sign up to go. It's a great opportunity to face-to-face with your legislators and their staffers. We're thinking we'd love to get a few volunteers to help us prepare for that day. So if you are interested in a very short-term project, note it in the chat. We would love a little bit of help here to maybe package these stories and leave them for key legislators. The committees like Senate Finance and House Appropriations and the new House Health Committee. These are people who are going to be hearing bills having to do with DDA issues. So please volunteer, help us out. It's a very, very short-term project. Doesn't require too much time and effort. But we really would like to merge the DD Day and the stories. We have about a month to do that. So please keep that in mind. And last, but definitely not least, please apply to the Waiver Advisory Council. We've been told by DDA that that is the place that they are going to be listening for recommendations for changes, improvements to our waiver. So they want to hear from a wide variety of people, people with lived experiences. So participants, please go ahead and apply. There's some family spots as well, but we would love everybody to get on that committee and try to make the difference there. So there has been some issues with applying the actual application. And we will put in the chat, I think, maybe Jess, you can help me with that, the name of the person to contact when you're having difficulties with the application. So it's a hard, several people on this call have tried to do it and have faced some difficulty, but we think we found a person who you can email and get some help with that. But it's definitely worth your time and trouble. So next slide, we'll wrap it up and then we'll head into the questions that you have.
Okay, so that was a lot of information that we gave to you to hopefully that help you understand where we are in the state right now and the advocacy efforts. Please give us your feedback if we missed anything on those key issues, if we missed any key issues themselves, and if there's anything you want us to know or to inform our advocacy efforts in regard to the key issues we presented about. Another thing I want you to keep in mind with your stories. Like Kevin is a fantastic storyteller. He'll take your information and polish it all up. But right now, as we alluded to in the beginning, over the last year or so, the negative narrative about self-directed services being too expensive, misuse, abuse, fraud, whatever. Right? The conversation out in the world in Maryland about self-direction, and I should say other states are seeing the same trend. So our stories have to also reflect the value, the outcomes, but the affordability, because you could have fabulous outcomes. If it's costing $1 million a person, the legislators can't get behind it, right? So Kevin will help with those stories. Get in touch with him. This is really a super opportunity to get yourself or your loved one seen and their story heard. So we hope you take advantage of that. But we will be focusing on the value, the wonderful outcomes, and the affordability, because it's not enough anymore to say self-direction is affordable. There is a large narrative out there that says it is not. So we need to show it. We need to show that rather than simply tell it. And so we'll help with that. Secondly, I wanted to say a comment about the Waiver Advisory Council. Stephanie Watkins is our representative, and I'm the backup on that. And, that is the systemic advocacy effort for us to collaborate. Again, are they listening? Well, we keep asking them to listen better and to really do what people with disabilities say they need. So it is an effort, but we have to be there at that table to continue to push and hold the DDA accountable and shape that. So, it is a systemic effort. It is not an individual effort. So if it is a long, arduous path when you're working with the state to help influence and impact in influence for change. So we do encourage people to apply and get on that, but recognize that it is a longer term push.
Patty, can I also say that
yes,
the public is welcome to attend those public meetings, right? So those meetings during the legislative session are going to be every other month, and then they'll probably go back to once a month. And you can attend in person, you can attend virtually. And there is a time at the end where the public can share. So that is an opportunity for, we sit in front of numerous individuals, at the state level. So that's an opportunity for voices to be heard. And I think, there's power in numbers. So try to attend those meetings if you can.
It's great. We want to thank you for attending. We've got plenty of time now. We've left plenty of time for questions and answers. Please put your questions in the chat so that we can, because, a lot of people have the same questions. So we can sift through that and try to answer some of them. We've had people monitoring the chat right now, and we will open. Please, let's not get open mics if we can help it. So I'm going to turn it over to whoever's been monitoring the chat, and we can start with some of the questions that are in there. But we understand you need time right now to put some questions in there as well.
So I can start with somebody was asking about day-to-day and does it stay in its current status until the next PCP approval date, and I believe the answer to that is yes. The substituted judgment is supposedly coming up in, I believe it's April, their DDA's intended time to have that take effect. Now is the time to be paying attention to it, learning about it, so we are able to focus our advocacy on the methodology that we feel that would work for both individuals and for the state CMS concerned. And I'd love to offer this to maybe one of our support brokers on here. Somebody is looking at the difference between personal care versus habilitative service, and understanding that many participants do need some assistance with personal care items during their day. And so what is the guideline for a person so that they understand it correctly? Anybody want to take that, Stephanie?
Without having the documents right in front of me, I want to be careful what I say. But basically, all DDA services are supposed to be habilitative. So the way I've always kind of approached that, Samantha, as a CCS, you might have some thoughts on this, but the way I've always approached that is, all of our services through DDA are more goal oriented. But that doesn't mean that services that fall under personal care aren't also goal oriented, right? So you might have someone who maybe will never brush their teeth independently, but it's still a goal to be involved in brushing their teeth, right? So I just always encourage individuals. I used to be a CCS, and I always encourage individuals that, all personal care can be habilitative, and write your plans in that way, and write your goals in that way, so that personal care has that that piece to it. That is they're always learning and growing and developing a new skill.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the only addition that I would say to that would be ensure that how you're writing your PCP is not solely focused on your daily living skills. So make sure that there's a combination, because daily living skills can be definitely part of personal support. It cannot be solely daily living skills.
And I think that might answer another question. Personal care could only be, I think it's an ancillary piece of the service. Rachel, could you check and see if that Google form is active? There is somebody who were saying they had a bit of a difficulty with that.
Says that it is published, but
okay.
if someone has direct questions, they can ask me and I can help navigate.
Okay.
So Alicia, I wanted to add, I think if you're looking at the waiver and in the definitions of the waiver services like CDS or personal supports, there's usually a statement in there that says that the personal care cannot comprise the entirety of the service. So, personal supports is personal supports, and you can have some personal care in that, but it cannot be the dominant service. Same with CDS. There can be some personal care in there, obviously, but it can't comprise the entirety of that service because of the habilitative nature of CDS and personal supports. So that's how it's written in those waiver definitions. Whereas CFC services, Community First Choice, is a personal care program. It is not habilitative. So services from CFC are focused more on personal care, if that's helpful.
Thank you, Patty. There's another question on eligibility and how to, get attention because things there are admittedly slow. What I have heard is to write often to the acting head of that. Maybe I'll see if I can figure out and get the email address for her. But people are experiencing difficulties in the redetermination process. It is a known issue, both by the eligibility department and by DDA and by MDH. But I would say write daily, squeaky wheels, to let them know that you're still not approved, because people have participants definitely have suffered loss of services during these lengthy redetermination processes. Okay. Somebody asked the name of the personal support program that Patty just mentioned. I think that's Community First Choice. That is a personal care program through Maryland Department of Health, different from the DDA waiver programs. Okay. So this is interesting. Somebody mentioned that on the timesheets for fellow and perhaps for the other two FMCSs as well, we're told we have to check a box for, what happened during that that session, and the drop down menu is mostly ADL. So it is confusing. There is one on there that's, I think, socialization and something like the community and socialization. And so that's one to pick. I totally agree with you. It's been mentioned. In the meantime, if you have to check one, pick one that fits the best. That's, not predominantly personal care.
The heading even says ADLs.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Alicia, there's a question about, does SDAN receive donations from Amazon if people indicate that under Amazon Smiles?
Amazon Smile is no longer participating in that program, sadly, because we did for a long time get donations through Amazon Smile, but they discontinued that. So we do have the donate button on our website, and we would love any support you all can give.
There's a comment about the FMSs not having a penalty for if they are not working efficiently or not getting payments out on time. One of the things that we like people to understand, again, I'm not defending FMSs, this is just a facts, is that if the FMS would pay something out to a participant and then it is disallowed by the state or Medicaid, then they will take the brunt of that. They will be out the money. So they're the middleman, and we want them to be efficient, experienced, and serve us well. And we all agree with that. But we need to also understand that they're in the middle, and they are also subject to not being paid. And that happens not by your budgets, but being reimbursed by Medicaid. So they really have a very, very challenging job. But we want to continue to ask them to be more efficient, give us better communication, and get bills paid on time.
Patty, can I add to that all of the administrative burden that has come from DDA with all of these little finite rules for every little process has to go through them. They have to know what the new manual says. They have to know what the waiver says. They have to be able to process all the new rules to mileage, all the new rules to health benefits, all the unspoken rules that aren't in writing that are being communicated to the FMCS clearly without our knowledge, because we're getting things back. All of us on this chat are learning through trial and error. We submit something and it gets kicked back because there's some new communication that went from DDA to the FMCS that none of us are aware of. So the problem, in my opinion, is not the FMCSs, not that there aren't problems with the FMCSs, but the primary issue is the administrative burden that keeps coming from DDA that is almost impossible to get through. So I think that's where our advocacy needs to be.
Yeah. Let me also add on that. I think a lot of people don't realize that the FMS is a fee for service. So they pay out up front, and then they go back to DDA to reconcile their books and obtain their payments. So that whole process has changed, where in the past they were paid front, and then they would make those payments and DDA would reimburse whatever that payment time frame would have been. So that whole payment structure has changed.
Hi, sorry, I just saw another question in this chat. Sorry, of course my dog starts barking. Um, from Erin Yunker, and I just wanted to try and give some advice to that question. She had asked, do you have any contacts and/or suggestions to reinstate the waiver? We have submitted the redetermination packet for years. We, along with other families, know that we know have had our program put on hold as funding through the waiver has been ceased. Some individuals have had success, while others haven't. So I think what she's speaking to in this is the wait list is what I'm trying to understand from here. And that I wanted to suggest is an issue that does get heavily addressed in the legislative session, in particular. So they do end the Wait Act reporting. It is a little bit of a topic that isn't expressed a lot in these organizations, but it is an issue that they will address. So it's a concern for everyone. I think in part of the sustainability committee being formed was so that we would be able to have a system that could serve more and have less of a wait list problem. So I would encourage that person to reach out to their legislators with that particular issue. And I would also cite that I think specifically, I've heard many times, Senator Zucker has got a particular interest in that initiative. So for that person, I just wanted to give them a resource.
Thank you. Patty?
Yeah, just to add, we know that over the last 2 years, people have been knocked off of Medicaid, knocked out of Medicaid, right? We'll refer to that as EDD, the Eligibility Determination Division, right? So people have lost their Medicaid. If you lose your Medicaid, you lose your waiver. So there is the wait list that Jess is talking about, wait list for services that you're not currently being served. But there's other reasons that people get kicked out of who lose their waiver benefits because they lose their Medicaid eligibility. The providers and our coalition partners see this as one of the number one top issues when people that's going on right now in the state is people losing their Medicaid, which then renders them unable to have waiver services in addition to their health insurance. So they are absolutely legislating and talking to legislators about how to protect individuals with disabilities and their Medicaid eligibility, in addition to looking at the overall wait list for DDA services. So we do know there's a lot of advocacy going on on those issues.
I'm seeing a couple of questions about health benefits and getting reimbursement for health benefits. And I know a lot of the folks I support are having a problem with that. We are being asked for lots of documentation. They want an actual copy of the policy. The FMCS wants not only proof of payment, I know Fellow specifically has asked for a bank statement. So individuals are having to kind of wait to the next month until their bank statement appears. They need a copy of the actual health benefit policy. So as an employer, you have to have a health benefit policy in writing that dates back to the start of your plan year. And there's wording in the manual that if you had coverage that was paid and now based on new rules, it's not being paid, that DDA will work with you to have a transition for your employees. So that's where I stand with a lot of the folks that I support. I'm a support broker. We're really trying to advocate that they at least get coverage until next open enrollment season so they can pick a different plan that, better matches. Apparently it's an unspoken, we have heard verbally from someone at DDA that their intention was never to cover medical, anything other than just medical. They will not cover dental, vision, or prescription. I am really pushing to fight for that because it is the national standard for small businesses to cover those things. And everyone in the state of Maryland that gets Medicaid coverage, Medicare coverage, works for the state of Maryland, works for one of the providers, those benefits are almost all the time offered. So it's not fair that the individuals that our participants are employing should not also have the same benefits. So I'd love to get groups together to advocate for that. But if you are currently fighting to get health reimbursement, benefit reimbursement, make sure, write to your FMCS and say, give me a specific list of every single thing that you need to get this covered. Because what they'll tend to do is kind of send it one thing at a time. And that just drags it on. So
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but in most people's policies, prescription drugs are an integral part. They are not separated out. So it's an impossible ask.
You can't even find a policy, right, that doesn't have it.
Right.
Exactly.
I think what they're talking about is people that have Medicare and have those specific side programs that are under pharmacy. Almost every regular general health policy has a prescription that's added to it. So it's not.
That's a part of it, right?
That's right. It's
Right.
part.
Yeah. So, and Peter is a new board member, but his life's work has been in the insurance business. So I think we can take that as a professional statement there. Thank you. Let's see. I think the last thing I saw was a little bit of confusion about the REM and what REM and CFC stand for. I know it was answered in the chat, but I don't know if everybody's pretty clear about those being two different programs, not a part of DDA, but part of MDH under that umbrella.
And Alicia, I did see where someone was asking for assistance if they were having problems with getting staffing or getting their PCP through because they have REM, to ensure that the person is getting adequate supports and services in place. What I will say is, once again, I'm Kim Mans. I'm a new SDAN member. I have several people that are working on that issue. If you want to either email me or give me a call, I can put my contact in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, and then Stephanie, somebody's wanting to know if you're going to get a little group together. They're interested in forming one with you and perhaps to go to the Waiver Advisory Council.
Yep.
Maybe a way to go. Go ahead, Jess.
All right. I was just making note. There's another question in here, I think from Ellen Blackwell. And she was just kind of citing some information about what has come up. And she says the dreadful and software DDA compels the CS to use for person-centered plans. It has no editing capacity for family, individuals, or others, and only the CCS has access. And it severely limits the ability to contribute and puts a strain on CCS time. And nothing is person-centered about this. I thought that was interesting that you note that. If you don't already know, there was a lot of work that was put into trying to make sure that participants would have access to LTSS. And so the My LTSS program is a software program. I can't speak to how efficient or inefficient it works because we don't have access. But it was put in the Self-Direction Act to allow participants to have visual access to their information. We have brought that up plenty of times to the administration. And so far, I think, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, the only answer that we've really gotten is that it's just kind of stalling. And so that there's for one reason or another, an issue why they can't launch it yet. So while we all know that that is very frustrating, it is on the radar. I don't know that it made our list of key issues, but it is a key issue that we do track. So to Ellen, I just wanted you to know you're not alone.
It is part of the Self-Direction Act, the read-only access. People who get CFC funding actually do now currently have read-only access to LTSS. So it is not either difficult or impossible to do. There have been meetings with DDA's IT department back in 2022. I was there, where they were asking, like, what parts do you need to be able to see? I do think this also speaks to some administrative burden / cost of self-direction, where if a participant could look and see where they are, they can actually see the clarification requests in cases where they're not being told right away. It has a lot of benefits, both in a person-centered way, but also in an administrative reduction of administrative burden and cost. So this has been mentioned many times in many different venues, and I think we just need to keep pushing. It is part of the Self-Direction Act. Read-only access is part of the law.
I think, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
I don't know if
we
you're
Yes, we
talking.
This
can.
is Ellen.
That's
I'm
Ellen.
sorry. I was just going to clarify something because I understand, and that's great about the read-only access, but what I'm trying to express here is that, say the person's plan is coming up for renewal, right? And the individual or the family wants to edit the old goals, and there's no way to translate the document into a Word document that can be edited and sent back to the CCS. The person has to work from a PDF, which is just, it's so wonky and burdensome.
I have heard, Ellen, that it is possible for the CCS to do that, for you.
It was, but it no longer works. Okay.
Okay. Well, I will
Okay.
check into it and get back to you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So there is a way to transfer it. I've done it for several people. I do it for a lot of my clients. Um, I don't know. I don't know if the CCSs can do it anymore, but there is a way for, actual individuals to do it. So, I'll be glad to help.
Maybe we can do a little how-to memo. Thank you.
Sure.
There are quite a few questions about the health insurance, and obviously with the new year starting and the subsidies being not renewed so far, there is a question about what does one do when a staff person's insurance has gone up, and how does one fix that? So I'm going to ask the support brokers again. If there's any ideas of I mean, it has to be through your policy manual, right?
So we, rewrite our policies. All of the participants I support, their policy is, written very similar. They all kind of to choose how they want to do it, but all the folks I support, it's typically based on how many hours a person works in 1 week, right? So somebody working 40 hours a week doesn't get the same amount that someone working 20 hours does. So it's a set amount for if they're a 40-hour-a-week worker, there's a set amount. So if they choose a policy or their policy goes up, they only can get so much coverage, right? They're not, so if they get $400 a month and the coverage goes up to 500, 400 will get covered, and then 100 they're gonna have to pay out of pocket. So we, just like with a regular, if you work for the state of Maryland, you have a out-of-pocket portion, right? Each of us, if you've ever worked for any other organization, you usually have an out-of-pocket portion. So I don't think the folks that I support, I encourage them not to tell them we're going to cover your entire premium. That's kind of, not realistic. That's how we do it.
I just want to say something that's very important. Today's the last day for the state of Maryland's Health Connection. And there are many people, and we've had a lot of clients that come in and having their programs are going up in price, and we ask them to go ahead and call back, and they call back and come back and say they made a mistake. And this has happened many, many times right now, is because the subsidies that were initially cut off for January the 1st, the state has implied that they were going to cover some of those subsidies again. And now there's some legislation in Congress, it's in the House, and now going to the Senate, where they could possibly extend the subsidies for another 3 years. So what's happening right now, when people call, they're finding out that their premium goes back down again. So, but before they panic, and we've had one, for example, that was paying $120 a month, and they were telling them it would go to $900. They called back and found out, oh, well, there's no increase in your plan. We had made a mistake. So I encourage everyone to try to get back to the Maryland Health Connection if that's where you've got your policy from.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so, and some of the clients that I cover, their policies have adjusted. There were additional funds that were in the unallocated. What we
Yeah.
did was we revised the policy. We also had the team come together to revise the budget to do a budget mod to move money into that line item to cover that increase of that policy.
Thank you. Rachel, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
We just wanted to revisit the comment/question about people not getting letters about their denials. If anyone
Go ahead.
wanted
Oh,
to answer.
okay. Anybody have any?
Or who they can reach out to if they don't get a letter.
Yeah, I actually got a separate question about that today. I'm a little bit at a loss other than legislators have been helpful. I would say maybe, go to the top of the DDA chain, and maybe MDH as well. That's important. If you don't get a denial letter, well, was it even denied if you don't get a denial letter? Somebody else?
Can I just jump in for a second? I don't know if this is concrete, but just speaking to past experiences, I do know that when we had to go through this whole spout, the individuals at DRM are particularly helpful, and then we were able to find out that there is a length of time without any documentation or any statement where you feel like you're in limbo. It is warranted, and people do view it as something, that you can do as it being an unreasonable amount of time without receiving information. You have a right to appeal a decision, assuming that that decision is a denial because you haven't heard anything. So if that's wrong, they'll just tell you like, hey, you haven't actually officially been denied yet. But it gives you something proactively to do after a certain amount of time. And I think she said something like right around 30 to 45 days, but I could be wrong. I do know that you can reach out if you've appealed and your information hasn't made it to the Office of Administrative Hearings. There is a phone number listed, and they're very friendly. They will let you know if your case has been received from MDH at least, and if or when it has been scheduled. If they haven't received it and it's still sitting at MDH, they'll be able to tell you that. So reach out to the Office of Administrative Hearings. The phone number is something you can Google search. I don't have it on me right this second, but that was extremely helpful for us last year. And then it kind of puts it on the radar too. So they'll reach out, I think, and try and say, hey, MDH, why isn't it over here yet? We're getting calls about it. So hopefully
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Jess. I also just want to acknowledge one additional concern was awake overnight being denied. People who've had them for years. So if that's an issue for you too, just kind of note that in the chat so we're aware, or fill out one of the forms or email us at the address. Hey, Patty.
We probably should have gone into that key issue a little bit stronger in regard to personal support enhanced rates or overnight supports. We continue to push back on the DDA to change the policy and the waiver that it not simply be a nursing care plan or a behavior plan used as documentation, but there are many cases that alternative documentation should be considered, because we are not two-dimensional beings. We don't either have higher needs. Remember, this is the rate to attract a higher skill level, a staff person, right? Staff person with the skills to match your your needs. So we're not simply behavioral or medical people. There are many people with communication needs, sensory needs, and we know all that from your feedback. So we continue to push the DDA to consider an objective criteria for a person to qualify for the enhanced rates and or overnight supports. that they entertain alternative documentation. And we will continue to push that one seriously.
Awesome. Thank you. Jess, do you have we're getting close to the end here, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one more quick thing because I was looking at the time. Is it possible that we maybe can take a couple of questions or a couple of hands if there's any participants in our audience, or if there's anybody that's having trouble getting their question into the chat that's really pressing, if we have a few minutes to give them that other avenue, just in case they're having trouble typing anything in here for questions? Can we do that if we have a few minutes left?
As always, if somebody can't use the chat, then we always allow somebody who cannot use the chat to say. But if you can, obviously, if you open it to everybody, then everybody's talking over everybody. But Elizabeth, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't figure out how to raise my hand. I just wanted to offer some information for people that are being denied eligibility. DDA is now sending complex cases that they feel like they can't make decisions on to Kennedy Krieger. And there is a panel of people that are actually reviewing that. And I just happen to know, I'm a neuropsych, and so I know how this works. But nobody knew this is what was going on. So now sometimes what people have done is they've written and denied, but the minute of someone comes back and says, we're going to appeal, they are frequently sending stuff to this team at Kennedy Krieger. So it's worthwhile, if you don't hear back, to say, hey, I'd like it to be sent to the Kennedy Krieger committee, where they are reviewing complex cases. And basically they have this little form that all looks at how stuff translates into adaptive living and problem solving that they complete. And I know they've gotten some rare genetic disorders through with approval back to DDA, where DDA would say, well, we're not so sure, it's a disability for this many years, et cetera, et cetera. But they're really very competent and considerate people. And whatever the criteria 5, just because I write the reports, is obviously always the one that's the problem. And I'm saying people should ask for it. And I'm sure it's not, they don't tell you that's where they're going, but they are really, really good, qualified people. So I would just recommend that. It's a big secret. Of course.
Thank you very much for telling us.
Yeah.
I would,
all right.
Elizabeth, I guess what comes to mind is that is probably across all DDA services, not simply self-direction, right? Right. So there's almost 20,000 people getting getting DDA services.
It's not just self-direction.
Right,
it's
right.
in
So
general.
don't start panicking out there thinking it's one of you, right? So.
Oh yeah. No, it's not. It's just they're they did that to have an objective and as well as to really understand. So they don't say self-direct versus traditional. They do none of that. They're just basically getting people into the pot of money. Now, I just saw someone says, what's the KKI department? It isn't a department. There is a group of people that are on a committee through a grant. And again, it's not something that's per se public knowledge. Otherwise, everybody would have known about it. But interestingly enough, they did a presentation to the Maryland Psychological Association and the APA. So that's where I found out about it. I was like, oh my gosh. And I did get some of their forms that they use to make decisions. So I was like, oh, this is really good. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Somebody is asking how you get them to send your case to the committee. So I'm assuming it's going through your CCS to the regional office. Is probably the best way.
You have to have been denied eligibility first. Or if they're taking a long time, say, I heard about this committee. I'd like this application to be sent there. So it's
mostly for transitional youth that you're seeing this, or for people denied?
It's for
anybody.
Kids. It's for people that DDA can't make a decision about. And I would say probably because they don't want to spend the money to hire an attorney. So this way, it's a group of medical and psychological professionals that can review the case objectively and using the criteria. So it's a professional group that uses that criteria to make that determination.
It's interesting. I really like to learn more about that because we have heard murmurs from the DDA through participants that, oh, you're too medical, or DDA is not a medical program. So, I really would want to kind of watch this and see what its intention is and what is the, how is this going to be used for or against participants. So my little antennas are going up saying, oh, you're on mute again. Elizabeth, you're on mute. Elizabeth, can you unmute?
Yeah, they are the other end of the direction. So they basically turn medical issues into developmental concerns. They are the other end, and that's sort of what their job is. So they have like a spina bifida clinic. There are people from all the major clinics, TBI clinics, and all that stuff. So they're basically translating it into the effect of why it is a disability, even if it is a quote unquote disease. But where their success has been is in the rare genetic disorders. Really, really successful because DDA didn't, and let's give them benefit of the doubt, they didn't have any way to characterize that because they didn't find out people would get a genetic disorder at age 18. It would have explained all the problems they had. So now it does. And since that came from birth or before birth, it changes the equation for consideration. I think you could try and look it up on Google under Kennedy Krieger DDA partnership, something like that, and just sort of see what's in there.
Oh, we might just call our friends that are the head of KKI and ask them how we can get involved. Like, how do we know?
Yeah,
some of us have friends in high place. Like, but
it is the issue.
I actually just found it. I'm going to plug it in the chat.
They're trying to keep it secret, but it's also it still is a good decision, I think, in that they need to be. I don't give them much credit, but I think it was really. Oh, she already found it. Community initiatives.
Wonderful.
Good. Yeah, I do think it's a step in the right direction to bring in objectivity and qualified objectivity, not just save money. So I want to say that I give them credit, but I found out totally by accident because I'm special neuropsych. So
excellent,
very interesting. Thank you so much, and thank you, Rachel, for finding that link for us. I think, Patty, it's probably time to wrap it up and let everybody go about their day.
Yes, thank you all for coming. I know it's always a little bit of an information dump, and you start to feel some kind of feelings when you leave here, either support or overwhelmness, or your to-do list has just grown, and we recognize all that. But understand that, we really value your connection with us. We are, I no longer experience this as a parent. My son is deceased, but I certainly serve many customers, and we understand that what participants are experiencing, the fear that is in the heart of participants, and certainly the feelings that family members are having right now. And that really is our fuel to keep doing this work. So yes, it's advocacy and it's to-do lists and it's meetings, but it's also connection with you, and we really value that. So thank you very much, and we keep watching for SDAN, more things coming from Kevin, more things coming from our
stories.
And really get in on this opportunity to tell your story, get in touch with us, get in touch with Kevin. It's your opportunity. Thank you very much for coming. Have a good afternoon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.